Welcome back to Wildflower Woman podcast. My name is Jess. I am your host. Today is a solo episode, and we are going to be talking about what it is like to start a business because I know I, for one, had a very different perception of what it was going to be like. And almost about a year in now of trial and error with a few different things, I would say I've just now officially launched a business about a week ago, but I have been dabbling, and I can definitely tell you that it is not for the faint of heart, but it is so amazing. And much like childbirth, I think that a lot of times people only really talk about how amazing it is to have your own business and to have your own hours and pick your own schedule and be able to make all your own choices. And yes, those things are wonderful. But again, much like childbirth, there's a lot of things that people don't talk about that once you're in the situation, you're like, why did no one say this? So I'm here to be that person, I guess, is the nutshell. If you're new here, this used to be called No Way Tell Me Everything. It was a podcast mainly about spirituality and somatic healing and finding yourself and psychic topics, and it will still be that in a way. But it has evolved with me, as I believe that your brand and your business should. So we are now Wildflower Woman. That is the name of my company that I have started here. And it's mainly a branding, business, somatic healing, and astrology company. And I know that you hear those things and you're like, girl, that makes no sense. And it totally does. And I can talk more about this and how it does make sense. But basically, starting a business it's a full ass journey when it comes to the inner work. Because a lot of times no one's talking about that. It seems like it's just, you know, externally, but no one talks about all the inner work that goes on when you decide to go out on your own. Even if it's not starting a business, but it's just starting to actually be yourself publicly. And maybe you're wanting to do that online, express yourself more. Maybe you want to write, all of these things completely change you. So there's a lot of inner transformation that's happening that's then mirrored in your external world, and your external world mirrors your inner world. And it's the same thing, but it's just it's like it's on crack. It's like a whole different level. So let's get into talking about that. While we do it, we're going to do a little bit of crochet and talk crap because I am in the process of making this really cute wildflower square crochet cardigan that I'm super happy about. It takes for freaking ever, as we'll talk about good things do. But this is where we're at with it. So as you can see, if you're watching, I need to do a lot more squares. So we're going to crochet and talk crap together. So let me just do a little introduction if there's anyone new here. I'm Jess. I am many different things. I don't love labels because I think they keep you in boxes and keep you stuck. So I can talk about the stuff that I mainly work with and what I do. And I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I am a partner. I have a husband. I have 2 cats. I have a dog. I live in Copenhagen in Denmark. I originally grew up in the States, but I spent about half my life over here now. So I'm really this mutt of this in between immigrant. I'm an immigrant. And for most of my life, I worked in the corporate world. I spent a little over 15 years working in advertising and then in a tech company doing marketing and advertising and promotion. And when I was in advertising, I got to do so much creative work, so much strategy work, a lot of new business work. I worked with so many different clients. It was so much fun. It was so much stress, a lot of pressure. And I burnt myself out the first time there. And I burnt myself out bad. That was the big burnout, like crash and burnout. And that took me by surprise completely. And it also took me a pretty long time to come back from the recovery time on that one was pretty intense. But that's where my journey with somatic started actually. Because basically I was on a client who I shall not name, but let's just say I don't buy anything from that company anymore after finding out how they treat their workers, an American company. And I had worked on a new business pitch for them. We won the new business pitch. Amazing. But they wanted to work right away. They didn't want to wait for us to staff up people or anything. So I was able to get one other person on my team to start off with and eventually hire somebody else to come in. But it mainly sat on my shoulders, especially because it was a new client and I was client services director at the time. So I had to onboard and make a lot of priority decisions and work there, and it was an insane schedule. It was like they wanted almost 1,000 assets in 2 weeks to put out, and I completely worked myself to the bone. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was just shaking. I was surviving on cigarettes and coffee and alcohol, which is a very bad way to survive in any situation, but especially when you're not able to. I was drinking so much more because I was so stressed and I was not able to sleep. So I really needed to drink a lot to put myself to sleep at that time. Very unhealthy. My sobriety is a whole different story. But what happened was at one point, I was just a shaking mess. And I have 2 kids at this point. And my partner took me aside one morning and just said that he all he said, which was very valid, was that I needed to be more present because I hadn't been present for any of the family life stuff and it was taking its toll on him. And when he said that to me, it completely broke me. It made me realize how bad everything was and that I was neglecting my family. And for me, that has always been the number one priority for me. So I just started sobbing and shaking and crying, and he basically rocked me like a baby, and I had been hiding a lot of stuff from him, so he did not know how bad it was for me. Like, he didn't know. He would go to bed at 10:30 and I would stay up till 2 in the morning doing work, go to sleep for like 3 hours, and then wake up again. So, is my time right on that? Like 2, 4 hours maybe? Whatever. I wasn't getting any sleep, but he didn't know that. So when I kind of started telling him all the work I was doing in the background and hiding from him because I knew he would tell me not to do it, basically. He was like, "You should go on stress leave." And now being an American, I don't at least when I lived there, we didn't have stress leave. If you couldn't handle it, you quit or you got fired. Like that was it, right? And I knew that a lot of Danes went on stress leave, but I still had this perception at that point of like that's a sissy thing to do. Like this was the old me. This was the, suck it up buttercup version of myself. And I just was like, you don't do that. If I can't hack it, I can't hack it. And but at that point I was like I got in bed and I called my doctor, which is what you do to get stress leave. And I told her the situation. And she was like, she was like, well, I don't have any appointment times for you to come in. And I cracked open. And it was like that moment that I also realized I really needed her permission because I was not allowing myself, like, I needed someone to tell me that I had to do this. Um, and so she was like, no, okay, you don't need to come see me. You just need to take off. And so she put me on stress leave for 2 weeks. And during that 2 weeks, I slept close to 12 or more hours a day. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. I tried to drive somewhere one time and it legitimately was the most terrifying experience that I've ever had because my brain was it was like I was having time gaps. Like I would get on the road and start driving and then all of a sudden there would just be this car there and I was like, where the did that come from? And I was glitching. My brain was glitching and I started to get really upset because this was a version of myself I didn't know. I was always the one who took on all the work because I could always handle it. That's why I had such a huge workload. Like I was the fixer. I was the one who fixed everything. I could absolutely handle everything going on. So to then find myself in a situation where I actually couldn't handle everything that was going on was was really terrifying. And it was a very big wake up call to myself of realizing that I actually didn't know who I was outside of that identity. And I went to a therapist, and we started talking about some things at work and some things from my past. And I had been to therapy before. This wasn't my first time at therapy, but he said to me, I think that you're carrying around a lot of stuff with you still because I can see you're very self aware of the things of your past, but you're still acting them out on a daily basis. And he said, I think maybe you should look into somatic therapy. And I had been at that time getting a lot of ads on Instagram for somatic therapy. And if you know me, I believe the universe guides you and helps you. So I think, of course, there was a reason I was randomly getting all this stuff, right? So I ended up starting to do somatic therapy. And very slowly but surely, I started to understand the patterns that I was carrying with me, the amount of masking that I was doing on a daily basis, and how it was affecting me negatively. So I did a lot of that. I ended up leaving my job to go to the job in tech. which was another shock to my system. It was a completely different world. It was so slow compared to advertising, to the point that it was frustrating because I wanted to go and I couldn't move anywhere because bureaucracy. And for those who work in corporate, that's standard corporate, I guess. And the workload was a lot better there. So I had a lot of optimism that, okay, this is going to be so much better for me. And I was there for 4 years. And what happened was I ended up just repeating kind of the same patterns as I did in the other place. I wasn't nearly as stressed out in terms of workload, but I was still burning myself out in a different way. Because a lot of times we really think of burnout as workload, and it can be, but there's a more insidious and I think more common type of burnout when you're working for someone else, whether that's corporate or anything else. If you're in a job that does not align with your values or is not aligned with your purpose and what you really want to be doing, that burns you out. Like there's a dissonance there. And so that kind of, I was trying to mask, but not as much as before. So I was still trying to do the I can be professional kind of thing. And a lot of people do this successfully. So I'm not poo-pooing it. It works for some people. I would argue that it doesn't work for anyone truly fully, but some people can compartmentalize enough that it's not a huge issue for them. But it was a big issue for me. I'm a weirdo. I'm super unique. I do not like to not say the things that are pissing me off, or I really point out issues that aren't working. And if you work in corporate, they don't like that. Upper management does not like when you point out the things they're doing that are not good, actually. So I started to get a bit of a reputation that I was fun. I was a good laugh. I was always positive. I was really, really a workhorse. I could handle so much more than other people. I made really good campaigns. So they would give me the biggest, most important launches and product launches and campaign launches, whatever. It was always like, even though it wasn't necessarily in my department, it was like, give it to Jess because this has to be successful. And what I realized during that time, and it actually wasn't even me. It was like, I'm a Taurus. I'm stubborn as hell. I go past every red flag. I'm trying to get better, but it's my basic mode. My boss, I had incidences that I'm not going to go into, but I had some incidences concerning my boss that made me realize that although I was not masking as fully anymore, although I had made a lot of changes in order to not burn out the way that I had before, there were still fundamental issues that I had not addressed in myself that were just causing me to burn out in a different way. So I had a big nervous system break caused by something that happened at work with a restructuring, and I lost my sense of self-worth for a little bit, and I ended up having to go back and find that in myself. So I went back to somatics and I turned to astrology at that point. Back then, I had a knowledge of astrology that was pretty good, but I didn't know all about the natal birth chart, for example, which is where you find a lot of your patterns and energies that govern certain areas of your life and aspects that affect you and how transits affect you and my core wounds, like where are my core wounds and how do they show up in my life? So I kind of decided that work was no longer going to be a source of my identity or my self expression, my self-worth, none of that. But basically what it pointed to was I either needed to find a completely new job or I needed to go make my own way in the world, which is terrifying. So I went down to 3 days a week at work. I was able to do that. Of course, less pay, but I financially was able to do that. And I started to do a lot of healing work. I spent, I think, around 6 or 7 months of intensive healing work on myself and exploration and learning tons of new stuff and trying things out and starting my own very first business, which was just somatics, somatic work, like somatic yoga classes and things like that. So that was the first kind of stage of that. And then I tried out a number of like different kinds of courses and things, but I was still very much operating from not understanding myself fully and not embracing myself fully, which is a really important thing. So I was still, to a degree, doing what I thought I needed to do. I was still working in this like old world system versus this new world. I was in between because on the one hand, I truly believe in what I do now, what I teach now, which is this new world way of, I'm just calling it new world because I don't really have like a better word for it, but this like authentic business versus the way that this traditional business. And just to give you an example, like traditional business is you don't start a new business unless you find an opportunity and a gap in the market. So, like, if you feel really drawn to make straws, some specific type of straw, in the traditional business way, you would never do that because there's millions and millions of straws on the market. And people actually don't want straws because it's not good for the environment. So, unless you have some revolutionary straw idea that's brand new, it fits the market, you would never go into business. So, even though maybe there's a part of you that just knows that that's what you're meant to do, you would never do it because it's not a good opportunity. You're never going to make money off of it, right? This more authentic way is I know that my calling is making straws. I wish I didn't choose that example because straws is such a bad example, but we're going to finish it out. You're like, I know that my purpose is making straws that when you're done with them, you throw them on the ground and they turn into wildflowers. Okay, we'll just go with that. And all the investors, all the people you talk to that are in business are going to go, you should never do that. It's not a high enough profit margin. Nobody's going to care about this. But you're like, this is what I believe in. I authentically know that this is the beginning of my journey and it will lead somewhere beautiful, but this is where I start. And everyone's going to tell you no, but you just know that that's right. And you're allowed to do that. And that's authentically you. And you go into this business knowing that business takes time to build. It's not quick, it's not easy, it's confronting, but this is your purpose. This is what you're meant to do. And that's why you do it, not because you can make money off of it. Another more probably targeted example would be marketing, right? So, in marketing with this traditional way of doing business, you look at your product, you do market research, you figure out who is going to be drawn to your product, and then you create this target audience or this ideal customer profile, and you try to manipulate them. Quite honestly, you can call it what you want to call it. It's manipulation because a lot of times the companies, like I will say Patagonia is one that I would never include in this because they are literally so authentic with their marketing and their product and their values. But a lot of times companies' values are just not what they go by, right? They have brand pillars that tell how you talk to it, but it's not actually how they want to talk to things because they believe in it. It's how they want to talk to things because that's how their customers want it. So you're basically trying to catfish your customer to buy your product, right? That's this traditional way. Whereas this authentic way is I believe in my product. I need to understand my mission, my vision, my purpose. I need to understand myself, my story, my expression. And then I put it out there. And I might have a target audience based off of what I know at this moment. And I might create a customer profile off of what I know at this moment of who I want to talk to or who I think would benefit from this. But it comes from a place of I'm not trying to manipulate people into working with me. I'm trying to reach the people who will benefit from my product are working with me. And so there is strategy in that. There's understanding, there's knowledge that you have that you use to do that, but it's coming from a place of authenticity within yourself, of realness, and actually wanting to be of service versus just wanting a quick money making situation. And so that's what I have gone into now. And now that I've rambled for a long time, and I'm probably going to cut some of this stuff out because it's just going to be too long. If you're new here, I'm a rambler and I haven't crocheted like at all. So this is going great. It's right on target. Let's talk about what it's like starting a business. So, like I said, starting a business is absolutely no joke. Don't do that unless you're either A, you're not willing to put in the hard work, but you're actually okay with that because you're totally fine if it never takes off. It's just something that you want to do. And that's a totally valid way of thinking. I just want to point that out because a lot of times when you start talking publicly online or you start a business or you start doing events or something, people are going to give you a lot of advice on what to do to make it successful quickly or what to do to make money quickly. And I think it's really important to understand what your goal is because for some people, thinking like that will actually ruin it for you. Because there are some things that are just meant to be part of your expression. And so it's part of your brand because it's just part of your expression and it serves others in a different way that is not becoming a monetary exchange. Like, for example, I really loved making and decorating cakes when I was younger. I was really good at it. I'm still good at it. But a lot of people were like, you should go into business doing this. And I was like 23 or 24. And I was like, yeah, I should. I should totally make money off this. I will tell you, when I started making money off of it, I hated it. It immediately ruined the whole thing for me. And that's now my understanding that that was never meant to be a business for me. That was meant to be a way of my expression. And when I put things out about baking now on my other profile on a Wildflower Witch, people write me all the time how much they love the cooking and the baking content, how it inspired them to do some sort of baking or cooking. That's how my expression serves. It's not for a monetary exchange. So if that's your goal, that's fantastic. And then it takes so much pressure off of it because you're literally just doing it as part of your expression, right? Then you don't need all these bells and whistles. You don't need to become a master of marketing copy. You just have to express, right? And that's so valid. It's still good to know your brand if you want to, for example, grow your audience, because if that's your goal is like, I don't want to make money off of this now, but I do want to grow my audience, then yeah, knowing your brand and what you're putting out, what you stand for, how you show it, how you talk about it, when you do, like those things are all important. You can still use a brand for that, but it's just good to know that your goal is not money. If your goal is to live off of your business, you 1000% need a brand, but you also need to understand all of this stuff around it that it's very difficult. Online, there's so much content that's like, if you just take this course and you just do this, you're going to make 10 times what you're making now, right? But if you're making zero, 10 times zero is still zero. I just want to point that out because they obviously don't do that. You really have to use discernment because I do believe there are actually people out there doing these courses who want to help you grow. I mean, I'm doing these courses because I want to help you grow. So if I'm doing it, I believe there are other people doing it. So there are a lot of people trying to make you believe that if you just take this course or you just do this messaging or you just do this, fix your offer in this way, whatever, there's lots of different methods. Like you have to find what works for you. But the point is that they say that if you just do this, your business is going to take off immediately. And I think the reality is when you talk to other people in business, they're going to very quickly break that for you. Are there situations where people get a breakthrough and something big happens? Absolutely. That definitely happens. But the reality is the majority of your business, the majority of the time that you're building things, that you're doing things, that you're putting them out there, it's slow. It's uphill. It's harder. And you're going to want to give up a lot. So that's like the first thing that's very important to know about having your own business. Sometimes you're going to want to give up because it's a lot easier. Like there's times when I look back and I go, oh, just go back to corporate. Because there's so much I don't have to do. Like, yes, the work was difficult at times, but I still knew what I was doing to a degree, and someone was telling me what to do. And those two things, I think we take for granted how much comfort they give us. Because when you start your own business and you have to listen, like you're the only person telling you what to do, and you have to figure it out by yourself, and it's really difficult, and it's brand new, which is always difficult. That level of difficultness is a whole new level. Like, the work that I was doing that burnt me out workload-wise was so much. It did not burn me out in the same way. Like, I'm not getting burnt out about this business, but the emotion it's just different. Like, that was physical, this is emotional. There is so much emotional toughness. It's not just about all the work you actually have to do by yourself, but the way that it tests your resolve, your resilience, because you're gonna wanna go back you're gonna question it a lot in the beginning of like, "Oh, this is so hard. I need a break." And you're gonna sabotage. So you're gonna be like, "This is really hard. I'm gonna sit here and crochet all day instead. I'm taking a break." These things happen. It's just to say as well, like, I think everyone I've talked to has gone through it. So if you go through it, welcome to the club. That's part of it. But the important thing is that you don't go back unless you really have taken the time to decide that this is not right for you. Because sometimes that's the thing. Sometimes you try it and it's just not right for you. And maybe in 3 years I'll be saying, I tried it out. It wasn't right for me and I'll go back to a different job. It's okay to reinvent yourself and change and decide things aren't for you, but don't give up just because it's hard. Because you can do it. You can do it. A lot of people have done it. And if someone else can do it, you can do it. You know, if Jeff Bezos can start a company from his garage selling books, I mean, maybe you can't do that because I hope if you're listening to this, you have a conscience and a soul. But it's just to say you can do it. It's difficult, but you can do it. So that's like the first thing is a lot harder than you think it's going to be. The other thing is that you're probably going to think a lot of your friends, family, network are going to be super supportive. And I hate to break this to you, but that will not be the case. I think there's a lot of reasons for this. I think everyone has a different lens of why it is. And I certainly go back and forth with certain people about if they literally don't want me to be successful or if they just don't realize how hard it is. I think the majority of people don't realize how much their support means to people who are opening a business. They don't realize how difficult it is, especially if they haven't done it themselves. Because I will say, the most support that I get is from other women who have their own businesses. And I think it's just because this is one of those things that until you have started it, until you've done it, because all of the messaging that we see around us talks about starting your own business and how easy it is, like I certainly had a different perception of how easy it would be to make a sale. I think people just don't realize. But it's an important thing for you to realize because it can trigger something in us that makes us feel like people don't want us to succeed or we're not good enough or they think we're going to fail. And then you start questioning yourself. When in reality, I think, like I said, the majority of people just don't really think about it or don't really care. Now, there is the real possibility that, yes, some people don't want to support you. And then you have to make a decision of if they don't want to support you, do they get to stay in your life or not? I will say I've made different decisions with different people. Some of my really good friends literally don't share or come to anything that I do. But I've also come to the realization with those people, they're there for me in a lot of other areas of my life. They just don't resonate with what I'm doing. And I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt me that they're not more helpful um, with helping the business grow because I know that I would do that for my friends. But it's not a situation where I'm going to throw them out because of that. But there are people who are literally not supportive in any area of my life. And I really don't talk to those people anymore. Then I have coworkers that I used to work with or networking and you would hope they would be more supportive, but they're not, especially, if you worked with a lot of men in corporate like I did. They talked about championing women and all this other stuff. And then when they get a chance, they don't do it. It just opens up your eyes a lot to it. So you really have to have that internal resourcing of your self-worth and of what's good for you. I mean, I also have had meetings with people that I either know through work or have been friends with or met up with for coffee about the fact that I started a business and to ask some questions. And, they've really either poo pooed or questioned what I'm doing. And even a year or two ago, that would have made me quit. I would have been like, oh, if they don't believe in what I'm doing, there's no way I can make this work. But now because it's authentic and it's what I believe in and it's my own experience. I know how it works, right? Because I know that this is right for me. It's just, yeah, but that's because you're not my target audience. It's okay. I'm not affected by it. It doesn't make me want to quit or anything. I just know what areas I can talk to you about because I can't talk to you about my offering because you don't consider it as a good offer because you don't believe in it, whatever. If you don't believe in astrology, then you don't have to, first of all, if you don't believe in astrology, you don't have to use astrology. It's not a forced upon you thing. But adding even in the word astrology into my offer throws a lot of people off. Then they're like, oh, it's woo woo. It's crazy. I just know and believe that understanding yourself and how you operate and what's important to you and how you express yourself adds a whole new layer of understanding, which makes it easier to do what you're doing and align authentically. But for people who don't believe in it or don't experience it, that just makes it seem like this completely crazy offer. So then you just don't talk to them about those kind of things, right? So you really have to understand that you're going to have to create a new network of people. And this is something I'm trying to do with Wildflower Woman. I'm actually having a meeting with another woman who owns a small business about doing events together. I really want to create a community in Copenhagen, which is crazy hard, of women who have their own businesses or their own brands or are trying to get out there in the world because you need a community. You really do. Otherwise, it's just so lonely and so hard, and you have no one who understands what you're going through. And that's because, again, everybody has these different experiences and different life paths. And a lot of times, the people that we have around us are from a time in our life where we were not authentically ourselves. So when you come out and you're authentic, you're as yourself and you talk about what you're actually doing, those people are not going to understand it. And It's not that you need them to understand it, but it is amazing to have people who do understand what you're going through. I guarantee you, if I go into a small business thing with women and I talk about, oh, yeah, I teach women how to brand themselves and their businesses in an authentic way using my 15 years of experience, as well as help them understand themselves better by looking at their natal chart astrology. And then I help them to learn some somatic techniques that they can use so they can regulate their nervous system and expand capacity so they can actually do what they're going to do and go do big things and feel safe doing that and being seen, right? I can say that to somebody who owns a small business. They might not want to do that with me, but to be able to talk to them about how hard it is to sell or to network or whatever, they understand that, right? So having a community around you when you start a small business is really, really important. This is the next one. I'll just cap it at this one because it's a long episode. Otherwise, I don't want to keep it too long. But when you start a small business, it is going to trigger the F out of you in so many different ways. And it's going to touch really hard on your core wounds. Now, it depends on what your core wounds are, but like they're going to show up. They're going to show up in your business. When you go into a business, everything that scares you about yourself or that makes you sad about yourself is going to be put under a lamp and you're going to have to work through it. And otherwise, you're going to scram. Because otherwise, again, it's that difficult. It's too hard. It's too hard to constantly be dealing with my sense of self-worth every time I put myself out there. It's very hard, but I just keep doing it because I am resilient and I know that this is the right thing for me to do. But you're going to have to do it. Like you're going to have to. It's maybe not self-worth for you. Maybe it's something else, right? A lot of people struggle with imposter syndrome when they start a business, right? Like I've been doing this work for 15 plus years and I still get imposter syndrome of who am I to be doing this? And I have to be like, babe, you were a badass bitch in marketing and branding for 15 plus years. What are you talking about? Who else would be better to do this? Like, come on. Of course you're qualified to do this, right? So you have to really learn these somatic tools to deal with this triggering. I'm going to grab some water. 1 second. I feel like my throat chakra is like, get it out, get it all out. Okay, one more. I wonder if that sounded cute or horrible. Yeah, so you're going to get confronted with so much shit. Like it's basically like opening the closet door on everything that you haven't wanted to face. If you ever watched Friends, I believe there was like an episode where Chandler was not allowed to look in one of Monica's closets. And when he finally did, it was just full of garbage, right? And so she's like this nice, prim and proper person and has this trash closet. That is so much what starting a business is like. All of the stuff that you've hidden away from yourself for years, all of the stuff that you don't project outside of you, that you don't show people, it's gonna come up. It's gonna come up. Everything will. And it's why I talk about the somatic work in the business that I do, because you have to be able to regulate yourself through that and deal with it because it's holding you back. So if you're scared of how things are going to be received by people, or people are going to think you're crazy or weird, or if putting yourself out there is scary because you might actually fail and then you prove to people that you're not good enough, all that stuff is going to come up. And if you can't work through it and expand your capacity in your nervous system and in yourself to hold these feelings and move through them, you're never going to do it. You're going to go back to safety, go back to your life that didn't make you happy before, and you're not going to be able to follow the dream that you have, right? I guarantee you that when you do the work, let me talk through it in my program sense, because I think it makes a lot of sense when you talk about it. The astrology tells you a lot about who you are at your core, how you regulate, how you function, how you express, how you reach people best, where you're shining, where you maybe need some more support. When you understand those things, you're able to understand yourself in an authentic way of, this is how I show up in the world. And then we work on your brand and your strategy. What is your dream? What is it you're trying to do? Do you just want to speak publicly and you're really scared to do that? Do you want to show up online and you're terrified that your uncle's going to see it and tell your mom and your grandparents and your cousins and it's going to be this whole thing? What is it that you're dealing with, and how do we actually work through it with these somatic tools? And part of that is understanding who you are. Because, like I said with the Monica example, a lot of times we project this person, right? Or we wear these masks. You can talk about it however you want it, right? But that's not authentically who you are. And I'm not saying that you have to show up fully authentically, guts everywhere as you are, because that's just maybe not how you are. That's, again, if we go back to astrology, maybe that's not who you are. That's not how you're meant to express yourself. That actually would be hurtful for you, because it would end up making you just feel worse about yourself all the time. There's, maybe certain levels of how you show up. Like, you have to understand that. But if that's what you want to do, you have to make sure that it's you and it's not somebody else. Because again, if we're talking about, you want to start a business, is this actually something that you want to start? Or is it something that you think is a good idea? And that's not necessarily wrong. It's not wrong to say this is a good idea and I think somebody should do it. Maybe it is you, maybe it's someone else, but let's say we look at, we start doing the somatic work as well to peel away layers of conditioning, and then you get to the core, the seed of yourself, and you're like, "Oh, I actually don't like, it is a good idea, but I actually don't want to do that. That's not aligned with who I am as a person. Actually, I want to do this other thing." And then we go, "That's great. That's so amazing." And now we're going to figure out, how do you express that? How do you put it out in the world? How do you follow that dream in a way that makes you feel so incredibly fulfilled and aligned? Because you can stay in the job that makes you unhappy for as long as you want. A lot of us have financial obligations, so it's not like we can just leave. But there's like a mitigation plan of, if this isn't fulfilling me, what can I do that does? How do I take small steps towards it? You don't have to jump both feet in and quit your job and start a business. You don't have to do that. I mean, I did that, but you don't have to do that. I was privileged enough to be able to do that, but you don't have to, nor do you need to. You can work on it little by little. And sometimes if you have a dream of something, but you're still not really clear how it expresses itself, sometimes it is because it's meant to happen in steps. Divine timing is a totally real thing. Like, where I am now from where I was last year is literally a different planet. It's so different, and it feels different inside of me as well. So sometimes it's understanding when to jump and when not to jump. This was a very rambly episode, so I apologize. I hope it gets better. The only excuse I really have is Mercury is still in retrograde, and he's been real fun for me this week. But yeah, let's do a card. Let me just talk about it. Please share, like, rate the episode or the podcast if you like this. It helps it get out to other people who could possibly benefit from hearing it. And I'm doing this program. It starts April 19th. There's an online course. I'm also trying to make a course in Copenhagen so we could actually do it in person. So if you're in Copenhagen, write to me. I'll put my email in the show notes, but write to me, Jess at wildflowerwoman.eu, and tell me if you're in Copenhagen and you want to join. You can also write to me if you have any questions about the program. The website is wildflowerwoman.eu. There's all the information on there. It's basically a 4-week course where we go through 4 different kind of phases from beginning to launching ish of how you build out who you are authentically, how you build out your brand. So we start out with embodied being, where we really look into who you are. We do some somatic work. There's a lot of activation meditations you can do on your own. There's course books that you can start working with. The meditations that you do on your own are simply because they're like 27 minutes, and I think there's 5 of them per week is what I'm currently at, although I'm constantly adding stuff that comes through, because this is work that I'm doing with my higher self and my guides. Um, so I'm always adding more stuff to it. But those things are meant to be done as you please, as they call to you. There's one like removing masks. There's one about planting the seeds of your dreams. Like, there's different stuff that's meant to help you explore the relationship to yourself and what you're trying to do. And the first week is about embodied being, so understanding who you are, what your brand is, all this other stuff. Then there's embodied authority, which is really important because we work through how you find that resourcing in yourself, because a lot of times we learn to outsource everything. We always ask someone else the direction. We ask somebody else what we should do, what the best word, this is all about pulling it back in yourself, because I truly believe at your core, what is the best thing for you to do and what to do. You might need like I just thought of the Danish word faglehjælp, like the subject matter help on branding, which is why I'm there. But your soul, you know what's best for you. You just need that help with the actual like semantics of it. So that's week 2. Then week 3 is embodied branding. And that's where we really dig into how do the things from the first 2 weeks show up for you in your brand? How do we actually build out a brand? That's where you have like a logo energy guide where you learn literally about logos and how to create your own logo, all the different types of logo. It's extremely practical, but it also weaves in my beliefs around logos and creation, around putting our energy and intentions into them. So you have that workbook. Um, I also give you a template for brand guidelines. So everything that we go through, everything we work on together, you start to put into these brand guidelines. So at the end of the course, you have this document that you can go back to and you can really look at, let's say you want to do something or okay, here, let's use this example. Let's say you see a trend. You see a trend on social and you're like, I should do this trend because it's really, really getting people visible. Like I should really do this and go viral. But there's something in you that's like, I don't know. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make it me, right? You can go to your brand guidelines and look at what you've written there that we've worked on through the course. And maybe something comes up there where you're like, oh, okay, I take this trend and I talk about this brand pillar that we had or this content pillar or whatever. Or maybe you look at your brand guidelines and you go, this actually doesn't resonate with anything that I said I'm doing. So I'm just not going to do that because that's against my brand. And therefore, and so you get clarity. It helps you find your way through. Also, because we're working through it for 4 weeks, I should say you're really going to integrate and embody it. So you might not even need to look at your brand guidelines very often at all because you kind of have already gotten all that information inside of yourself. And the last one is brand expression. So week 4, we really talk about how do you show up as your brand. There's a lot of visibility work that we do there around feeling safe to show up and magnetizing. So like your energy reaching the people who need to see the work that you're doing or the products or what you're saying. And so it's a really lovely program. It's basically everything that I know, everything I've done. It is my experience. That's why it's called Wildflower Woman, because that is who I am. I am literally wildflower woman, right? Everything about me is wildflower woman. But it's just about like in a world of manicured gardens, be a wildflower. Everyone is so performative. Everyone is so meticulous. Everything is so perfect. It's just not about that. It's about being present. It's about being yourself. It's about expressing who you are. And honestly, that is what people resonate with. People do not want this overly polished, well thought out garbage. They want realness, they want real people, and we're not embracing our uniqueness and our own self-expression nearly enough. And that's all I want to do is show you that when you do that, that's when it's going to feel really good for you. It's going to resonate with the people around you. You're doing it simply because you want to, because it's how you're meant to be living, how you're meant to be expressing, not because you need some return for it. But at the same time, there will be, because this circular biodynamic Ouroboros, whatever you want to call it, way of being is like when you serve from a place of authenticity, you not only serve others, but you serve yourself. When I teach people, I also learn from them. I also improve my knowledge. I get better at what I do, and I also help them with what they need to do. They get better at what they do. It's this circular thing. A lot of times the things that are coming up for other people also ends up being something that I need to work on. So it goes around and around. And I just truly believe that. Anywho, everything's on the website. You can always write to me or comment. My Instagram is a wildflower woman because the other one was taken. I'm starting to post content on there. I just started it a week ago, but I'm starting to post content and stuff on there around branding, astrology, whatever. So please go follow if it calls you. Let's do a card. All right, guys, what do we need? One card, only one card, please. One card for today. What are we doing? What's the card for today? Crow spirit. Ah! Okay. Co-create with spirit. And this is a lovely card, as always, to come out with this because it is so much about creating the life of your dreams, co-creating whatever manifestation. Everybody knows I hate that word. I use the word co-creation, but manifesting is a more well-known word. Manifesting, co-creating, bringing into your life these experiences, people, opportunities that serve yourself and others, that serve your life path, your higher purpose. This is why I really believe in this authentic way of being in business or branding or talking or expressing, whatever, is because I believe that when you're doing that, you are aligning and co creating experiences with the universe. And I think I always try to teach and align people with what resonates with them. So this is my experience, but I know in my experience that when I am working with spirit, everything is so much easier than when I'm trying to do it the way that I think is best. And a lot of times that means opening up and listening, being more aware and being open to changes, not staying stuck in the same way of doing things. Again, it's this traditional versus this more authentic way. Spirit, a lot of the times, is working in ways that we don't comprehend. And so when we have these blinders on and we're trying to go one way and we're like, this is where we're going, this is how we're getting there, we are just blowing past all these signs that are trying to get us aligned in a different direction. I can use a personal experience because of Wildflower Woman is exactly kind of what's going on there is for the longest time, I did not want to work with branding and marketing. I really was like, no, I don't want to do that. I did that for 15 years. It burnt me out. I don't want to do it. And then I started getting these little breadcrumbs. A friend would ask me for help with her branding, or someone would ask me a question, or someone would ask if I could just do this one thing with them, if I was interested in this job, if I could help with this. And I was doing it because it was friends asking. And every time I did it, I would think, I really like that. That was fun to get back in that for a little bit. Okay, back onto the other bandwagon. And I just kept disregarding it because I really had this idea that I was not going back to that world. And it wasn't until the past few months that spirit started getting more forceful and give me a lot of signs of like, this is something that you're meant to do right now. You are meant to go back into that world in a different way. You're meant to take all the experiences, all the learning, all the growth, all the connection that you have with the universe and package it differently. And that's where this somatic and astrology and branding, these three things came together. Never in my life would I have ever packaged those things together. Maybe the somatics and the astrology, but even then, no, I don't think so. It never made sense in my head. Those are the three things that I'm so interested in. They're a big part of my experience, how I go through life. I never would have ever put those things together, right? But the universe started showing me these signs, and then I opened up my mind to it. And ever since I've done that, the amount of flow that has come through is insane. Like the whole Wildflower program, all of the website copy, the program, the weeks, everything was this complete mesh of everything I know and everything that the universe knows. And it came through and I wrote that whole program in like 3 hours. And I mean the whole thing, like not only the copy, not only how the weeks were that I wanted to break them up into, the topics we were discussing, the activations we would be doing, all of that just pouring out into a Google Doc for like 3 hours straight. No water, no pee breaks, no food, nothing. That's also my ADHD, but don't do that necessarily. But that's just to say, like, when I started co-creating with spirit and stopped trying to fight the direction they were trying to point me to, everything just flowed together so much easier. And I know a lot of people that I work with, when we talk about working with our spirit guides or the universe or signs, they have the same experience. Totally, fully understand we all have different experiences, and I respect that. But I have enough people in my life who've had the same experience to tell you that if you're trying to manifest something, I'll use that word again here. If you're trying to manifest something or build a dream life or whatever, and you're not being open to different ways of doing it, if you're not being open to how the universe is trying to help you, it is going to be a constant situation of pushing a rock up a hill, right? And sometimes it's like your spirit guides are next to you and they're like, why are you not just letting the rock fall down the hill and go up the damn hill by yourself? Why are you pushing the rock up the hill? But for whatever reason, we have it in our head that that rock needs to be on the top of the hill. And they're like, it doesn't, but we're not listening. We're not hearing. We're not seeing other possibilities. Maybe there's already a rock up at the top of the hill. We can't see it, but the universe can, right? So when you co-create with spirit, you're able to not only, not that it's not going to be hard work. I don't want to say that it's easy. It's not, but the work, it just feels different. It's a hard thing to explain it. It feels fulfilling hard, like you did a lot of work. It was difficult, but you feel really good about it, you know? It's like, I don't want to say it's like a half marathon because I have done enough of those to know, yes, it feels really good afterwards, but also really sore. It just feels good. Your soul feels fulfilled when you do work that's aligned with yourself. And when you're with spirit, they put the opportunities right in front of you. Things just make sense. People pop in, opportunities happen. The note is that it doesn't always go so quick. I think, like, if I can say one parting thing for this whole episode, is we have become so accustomed to this Insta culture where everything is so quick. Everything is so quick, and it has ruined us in a way because we give up easily. We give up if it's difficult because we have so many things that make our lives quote unquote simpler. And we give up if it's taking a long time because we're so used to everything being delivered so quickly, being able to, have everything quickly, stories about everybody just having this huge breakthrough immediately. These things are few and far between. The more common way is that it takes time. And the message that I've always gotten is that the buildings that we build with the proper foundations and with the solid foundations last forever. It's like a Three Little Pigs story, okay? So when things are taking a long time for you, keep that in mind. You're building the brick house. That's what you're building. You're not building the twigs and sticks that's going to get knocked over when something changes, because we know stuff changes all the time. The market changes all the time. If you're building something based on a gap in the market, the gap's going to close. And then what? If you're building something that's aligned to you, that's authentic, that you're doing just because you know this is right for you and you build it with a solid foundation, yes, it will take longer. It will be more fulfilling. It will be something that's worth waiting for, and it will last longer. You will build a loyal audience. You will know what you're doing. You will have solid foundations in place. It's not going to get blown over. It's going to be a brick ass house. So just keep that in mind. That's my last parting word. I've kind of already said everything else about following, sharing, liking, but do it if you haven't. So next week, stay tuned. I'm actually have 2 lovely guests on. 2 of my good friends are coming over. We're going to record an episode about the current energy of this year and next year specifically. I think we're going to talk about Sedna, who's an Inuit goddess of the ocean who gave life to the oceans. Interesting story of hardship and abandonment, but lovely story. And we're going to talk about that through a lens of like the astrology and the energy of the year. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening. As always, I love you all, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know. I love to hear from you. Have a great week.